Hi guys, Freddy here with another RPG Hints, and I'm leaning in a bit closer to the camera because it's been commented that it looked like I was relaxing too much in some of my old videos. So, let's try leaning in a bit. Anyway, I'm back with another designing and running a Star Wars campaign, the last episode of this particular series. So over the past few episodes we've covered choosing a system and a campaign setting, creating your world and populating it with NPCs, and writing adventures. And what I've left for this final part is the somewhat nebulous heading of running the campaign, which I'm feeling as if I'm coming up a little light on, since although I can come up with lots of generic games mastering advice for you, such as listen to your players and change the direction of your campaign and what they want for their characters, or keep the game moving, don't ever let the game stall for too long, if they're stuck at a puzzle then throw in something to help them, or just throw in a random encounter, because if your players are stuck then they will get frustrated and that's not fun. But those don't feel very Star Wars related. So I'm going to focus on a couple of Star Wars things I've not covered already, and then come back to the generic advice at the end. So last time I covered writing adventures, but I never really covered bringing the party together and starting your campaign. While some of your players might have written shared backgrounds, you can't guarantee it unless you force them to. So you'll need to come up with some reason to explain why this random Alderaanian princess is hanging around with a farm boy, and a Corellian pirate, and his Wookiee buddy. Now this can be as simple as sitting at the game table and asking each player to introduce their character at the start of the first game session, and come up with a reason why they joined the rebellion, or they joined the group of pirates, or whatever your campaign's based about. Or perhaps they all start in the same place. Maybe they've been picked up for individual crimes and thrown in an Imperial jail before they end up getting recruited to the rebellion together. Maybe they're in a cantina when a rebel spy staggers in, passes on a data package to them before they get gunned down by the Empire in front of their eyes. But in all probability, you want to write some way of the players coming together. A rebel commander contacting each of them, bringing them together into a team like Nick Fury does with the Avengers. Or Hondo Anaka getting them together as a big Star Wars Ocean's 11 type team for a big heist. Whichever way you bring them together though, it's definitely worth thinking about first, as the stronger the ties which bind the party the better. Not only does this help the bad attitude of some players. Well, what's my motivation for helping him? I only just met him. I'm only role-playing, that's what my character would do, since he's a cool loner type character. But it cements your campaign together as the stories of a team, rather than just the stories of a bunch of individuals. The other big piece of campaign advice I can give for Star Wars is that it's very equipment light. Not that players won't have lots of equipment, but their ownership of that equipment is likely to only be temporary. Just look at the movies. Han and Luke have blasters, but they spend much of A New Hope running around dressed as stormtroopers using stormtrooper blaster rifles, which are then never seen again. Luke loses his lightsaber and his X-Wing during Empire Strikes Back, but gets new ones for Return of the Jedi. Anakin uses several lightsabers over the course of the movies in the Clone Wars series, and uses different ships and vehicles throughout. Unlike games such as Dungeons & Dragons, where a player will get hold of a magical sword and hold on to it for the rest of their days, or at least until they get a more powerful one. Or Shadowrun, where the players spend hours poring over the rulebooks, finding the pistol which gives them maximum damage but gives them one extra bullet. Star Wars players will have favoured weapons, but they'll get lost from time to time, and they'll need to grab another. Even their hero ship might get shot out from them under them, requiring them to steal another. Now this isn't an excuse for you as a game master to break all the stuff that the player loves, and that they've spent time and money improving. But it should definitely be a known risk to the players that their ship might not make it through every story, so they shouldn't become too attached to it. And that sometimes they're going to end up running around just using whatever equipment they can scavenge after they break out of an Imperial holding cell. Or hand it over to enter a casino, then end up having to leave without having a chance to return to the cloakroom to retrieve it. It's also an excuse to hand out interesting equipment in their loot. So when they gun down that bounty hunter, maybe he's got a custom blaster with a scope that gives a bonus to hit, or extra range, or extra damage, or whatever. Let them grab it, let them have fun with it. You can always get it disposed of later, and hand out something else pretty cool in the next adventure. Apart from that, Star Wars is like all RPGs, so worth bearing in mind the standard GMing hints. Things like, Have fun. It's a role-playing game, and playing games is supposed to be fun. Make sure you and your players are having fun. But conversely, if you watch role players online and see them taking it seriously, they're putting on big performances and using expensive props, and then you judge your group and your players to not be doing it right just because they don't take it seriously and everyone's cracking jokes at the arch bad guy as he threatens them. If you're having fun, then your group's doing it right. No matter how you play, if it's fun, then you're playing the game right. And all styles of play are valid. Horror, hack and slash, true role-playing, all these are valid styles of play, and all of them are valid at different times. One of the adventures I'm most proud of is a horror Star Wars adventure, where the players found an abandoned Star Destroyer, where the crew had turned on each other like Event Horizon. Unknown to them, there's an experiment which is causing delusions, and they become progressively more paranoid. I handed out notes describing what they saw, some of them involving the other players, and the players rose to the occasion, accusing each other of working with the enemy and betraying them. Who knew psychological horror would work in Star Wars? But it did, and it was great fun. So try different things, and if they work, then great. If they don't, then discard them and move on. Have random encounters ready. As I mentioned before, keep things moving, even if it's just by throwing a random encounter at them, to give yourself some time to think as to what really happens next. Getting them skirmishing with a tribe of Tusken Raiders, or catching a pickpocket, or someone who claims to know them. Throw something at them to keep the game moving, and having a bunch of encounters pre-prepared lets you do just this. Never defend your actions. If you make a judgment call, as long as it's fair, you should never have to justify it. Be prepared to take it back if you're wrong, but getting into rules arguments just stops the flow of the game, so don't stop that, nip that completely in the bud. When you make a call, let it stand. Just make sure it's fair and your players trust that it's fair. Describe the world and take responsibility when you haven't done it right. Because RPGs involve verbally describing the world, make sure you're clear on your descriptions. If there's a chasm between the bad guy and the players, then make sure you mention it before someone says they're going to charge up to him. And if you didn't, then apologise, re-describe the situation and move on. Don't penalise the players for your mistake. Don't make the player fall down the chasm because they said they'd charge over. Let your players ask questions, even if this takes time, because although it might slow down the action, the character will be able to take all of this in just a glance. So don't punish them for the format of the game, and taking this extra time will help your game in the long term. Maybe by describing the cavern that they're fighting that Sith assassin in, it's going to inspire one of your players to shoot down part of the roof on him, after he proves he can parry away their blaster bolts. An innovative solution is always going to be more memorable and enjoyable than just shooting another bad guy. Always keep your players involved. If a player's incapacitated for half a session, then maybe let them play an NPC bad guy in combat, or let them take the part of the party's astromech droid for the session, or maybe get them to map. Get them to do something to keep them playing and interested in the game. Always remember that the characters must make progress. While it's tempting to raise the difficulty of the challenges when games mastering, if the players have reached a certain level, then the bad guys have too. And that's an important aspect to keep them challenged. But the players must also feel that they've made some progress. And in Star Wars, you've got stormtroopers for that. Standard level mooks who'll challenge the players to begin with, but as time goes by, they'll be able to take out progressively more and more stormtroopers, or TIE fighters, or whatever, and feel the rewards of their adventures as they get more powerful. If things are going slowly, then offer hints. If they're stuck at something, maybe make them make a knowledge roll to get an additional hint. Oh, you remember that Lando told you that the Raiders were coming from the north. Or if things are at a complete halt, then be willing to just point out something, especially if it's from a previous session. Remember you were told last week that the front door was fake and doesn't open, so you're wasting your time trying to pick the lock. It's not ideal, but it's better than your players ending up frustrated. An especially important one in these days of phones and tablets is when you're games mastering, then games master. These days, when you're using your laptop or tablet to work from, it's tempting to check your email or your texts, or to check on the score from your local sports team. Go, local sports team! But if you're not paying attention, then your players won't either. Steal ideas. There's no such thing as theft of ideas, only inspiration. But that said, steal ideas. If you like that character and you think you can make him interesting, then go for it. In one of the campaigns I'm running, the very first adventure I ran was a zombie story. Lots of shambling dead wandering around a wrecked starship. Not original, but effective and fairly memorable. Don't be too blatant about the source of your theft. You don't want your players making comparisons. But if it's reminiscent of a genre or makes them picture a setting, then your theft is working doubly well for you. And always remember that old military credo that no plan survives contact with the enemy. And the enemy of your plans are the players. You might make wonderful plans, but I promise you, your players are going to break them. They're going to distrust that NPC just because the voice you put on reminds them of the bad guy from last week. They're going to avoid going to Bespin because they think it's an obvious trap. But be flexible, change the plan, even end the session early if you need to. Sorry guys, I hadn't prepared anything for you doing that. Let's end here and pick up again next time when I've had a chance to get something ready. Anyway, what did you guys make of that local sports team game? Go sports team! And finally, at the end of the day, or at least the end of the game session, ask your players what worked and what didn't, and listen. Maybe they didn't feel comfortable with the alien princess who was flirting with them. Maybe the puzzles were too hard. Maybe they loved joking with the rebel pilot that rescued them. Let them tell you what worked so you can bring it back, and what didn't so you can fix it, or even abandon it completely. And that's it for this series. I'll do more on games mastering, much of it applicable to Star Wars, and writing adventures and role-playing in general in the future. But once again, I hope I've given you some ideas to work with, and inspired you to have a go at games mastering Star Wars, because if I can do it, you guys sure as hell can. So, as always, give this video a like, and please subscribe to the channel if you haven't. But most of all, you look after yourselves, and I'll catch you later. Bye.